cabinet led by the Prime Minister has decided that there are two critical issues to update the country on. And we are now joined this evening by the Minister of Energy, Honorable Dr. Rudal Munilal, who will speak to you on energy issues. And we are joined by the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Honorable Khadija Amin. So this evening, as we begin our weekly Cabinet Media Conference, I'd like to welcome the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government to brief you on some critical matters which the Cabinet and Government, led by Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar, has undertaken today.
Good afternoon, members of the media, members of the public. I join you today to give some good news. Our national program for the upkeep of public spaces for Carnival 2026 started on Monday, and so far we have had a lot of positive out of it. This program was created based on a cabinet approval where the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government will support and enhance the upkeep of public spaces, including areas that are to be used for carnival celebrations, but also our beaches, recreation facilities, and other spaces that are used for non-masquerading carnival activities, such as where you have youth groups and religious organizations keeping camps and so on the beaches and other areas. We met with all 14 regional corporations. I personally met with every one of them. We got their needs. We met with the NCC, the Ministry of Culture, and the NCC has 18 regional representatives. So we also have 18 regional coordinators who will liaise directly with the NCC's representatives to ensure that not only Port of Spain, Carnival, and Sando, and Chaguanas, but our rural and regional carnivals are well covered, so that those regional representatives will work with the NCC's regional representatives to ensure that every NCC event is covered, to ensure that other events, such as sporting events and non-NCC events, are covered through the regional corporations. Over 1,000 workers were hired, 86 teams of persons, of 12 persons each, will work for 4 weeks, starting from the 2nd of February and going to the 28th of February. These teams have been hired by the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government and assigned to corporations based on their need. Some corporations, of course, are more expansive and they have more celebrations, and therefore the numbers in the various regions and various municipalities vary. And in fact, when I met with some of those corporations, they made the request in terms of the number of employees they wanted. And in some cases, we identified other needs that they had not considered, and therefore we increased the number based on what they had originally requested. So we have our operations manager who will work closely as a liaison between the Ministry of Rural Development and the Ministry of Culture and NCC and all of our corporations. And I want to tell you that persons on this program have started to work, and we have had a lot of positive response. We have areas such as Tyrico Beach being cleaned up. We have several recreation grounds, recreation spaces. We have had spaces that are being used for stick fighting, for calypso competitions, and so on, that have started to be cleaned. We have had recreation grounds where they have sports days for Carnival and the Carnival season as well, being targeted by the municipality. And these workers are under the direction and control of the regional corporation. And therefore, as those workers have been out there, I want to thank our CEOs, our chairman and mayors, our public health inspectors and so on from the various municipalities for being so cooperative. We have, I really am excited to share with you. I have such a long list of the spaces that they have been working. In the Mayaro Corporation, for instance, the beach from Manzanilla, the beach stretch from Manzanilla to Mayaro, as well as the Guayari area. That is an area, for instance, where a lot of people visit during the carnival season. The Toko stretch, the Toko, Matlot, Balandra, Salibia, that stretch, we have a lot of people who visit there for carnival, but also a lot of people go there to camp. So that was identified as a special area. In Sawa, Lavantil, for instance, the beach from La Fillette, Tyrico, Las Cuevas, that was also identified as a special area for them. San Juan Lavantil Corporation only has one Juve celebration in Aranguez, so they really wanted to focus on the coast, and therefore we provided them with that support. In the Point Fortin area, for instance, there's the Clifton Hill Beach, which the corporation would not have maintained before. I think Petrotrin used to maintain that area, and that now falls to the regional corporation. So areas like Clifton Beach and so on in South Moruga Beach, those areas are being targeted. So far our teams are out there working, and I will be on the ground with the teams and our coordinators as we want to get value for money. The regional corporations, as they focus on their carnival activities, they have also engaged equipment such as additional compactors to remove garbage, flat tray trucks, in some cases water trucks to wash the streets. They have engaged that type of equipment as well. What we have provided them is with additional labor. So that reduces their overtime bill tremendously. Their bill where they would have hired persons on short-term employment, that would also have been reduced because the ministry is paying these people, not the corporation. So it presents some savings for the corporation. And the councillors and aldermen also had the opportunity to nominate persons to work on this program. So quite a number of the 1,000 workers were recommended by councillors as well as MPs, but councillors from the various municipalities, because they know the people on the ground, they know the people who need the work, who are capable of working. And what we also wanted is for people from those areas to work. So you have areas such as Blanchisseuse that is a part of the Tunapuna Piako region. And you would want to hire people from Blanchisseuse to work in Blanchisseuse. So they were successfully able to do that, make the recommendations of people from the communities to work in those communities, and we expect productivity. We expect the regional corporations to utilize their established workers as well as these new workers. And one of the things that we have observed is that these new workers are very productive. And the issue of productivity for all the municipal corporations is under a bit of a microscope now. And I think this is an opportunity for all of them to prove themselves.
Thank you very much, Minister of Rural Development and Local Government. We'll take questions.
Do you want to do the one of the EBC?
Oh.
Yeah. The other matter that I will share with you is in response to some mischievous comments by the leader of opposition, the leader of the PNM. In this government has a cabinet-appointed committee to review the boundaries of municipal corporations in Trinidad. There is some assertion that it's very misleading and it speaks to a lack of understanding of the parliamentary process and what an act of parliament allows and what the EBC is responsible for. I want to make it very clear that the committee, the cabinet-appointed committee, to review the boundaries of municipalities is not a UNC committee. It is also not chaired by any minister. It is a cabinet-appointed committee led by a retired and very competent former public servant, the former director of planning at the Tongue and Country Planning, and a former acting permanent secretary in the Ministry of then local government. The chairperson of this committee is a technocrat with decades of professional experience and a person who does not have any political affiliation. So this is not a political committee in any way. And I think it's really irresponsible for the leader of opposition to suggest otherwise and to present what is a technocratic review process as something partisan. It is not. And I think such statements really undermine public confidence, but it distorts facts. The facts are there because in the boundaries of municipal corporations are determined by an act of parliament. For those who are old enough to remember, in 1990, the Parliament passed Act 21 of 1990, and that was subsequently amended, that it changed county councils to regional corporations. That changed the boundaries of the county councils and created the municipal corporations and gave them additional power as well. But an act of parliament is responsible for the boundaries of the municipalities. The boundaries of the electoral districts fall under the responsibility of the EBC. So there's no question about the validity of such a committee. And I want to tell you, the committee is not making the changes. The committee will look at the data. They will look at growth polls. They will look at concentrations in terms of not just population, but amenities. They will look at areas that have commercial centers and schools and a concentration of other activities, and they will analyze and make recommendations. It is up to the cabinet and then the parliament to accept these recommendations. I also want to tell you that the issue of restructuring and resizing municipal corporations has really been an issue for decades. I recall that there were business chambers, civil society organizations. In fact, there were political parties, including the PNM, calling for a reduction in the size of certain municipalities. I recall, because I was in Tunapuna Piako as a chairman, senior PNM figures such as Jerry Nares, Esmond Ford, former Deputy Speaker of the House, and others were on record pointing out that Tunapuna Piako, which has a population of close to 250,000 people, should have a Tunapuna borough and a Piako region. And that is one example. And there are different scenarios that they would have proposed in terms of where those boundaries should be and where that centralized borough, what it should comprise geographically. The PNM in the last administration changed the name Diego Martin Regional Corporation to Diego Martin Borough and Siparia Regional Corporation to Siparia Borough. That is not the creation of a borough. A borough really has to be a centralized area of commercial and other activity, a developmental focus of the government and of the local authority. So the PNM would have failed in terms of the true creation of a borough. And what we are doing now will allow us to review and look at the data and let the committee make their recommendations. So the committee has already started with a very structured, consultative approach. They have engaged technical officers within the municipalities. They have engaged several ministries. They have also engaged other stakeholders such as business chambers and others who have strong recommendations, and their work will be evidence-based. It will be transparent, and as I say, it will not be cosmetic, because the last change that you had in terms of renaming a borough was just a cosmetic name change. We have to remember that we have a disparity in local government now, where we have one municipality having as much as 250,000 people. and another having 17,000 people or 20,000 persons. And in terms of funding, in fact, the disparity in funding has always been a hot topic. Our Prime Minister came from local government. She was an alderman in the then county council time. And one of the things that she has always advocated is for more transparency in funding to local government, to remove that disparity, because you have such a variety in terms of the population, the geographic size, the development focus. You have large rural areas that are underdeveloped. And so we must, I think this is something that you have to be, this is about Trinidad and Tobago. This is about developing our country. And you can't play politics with local government, because local government is so close to the ground. Both PNM and UNC persons have advocated for these changes, and I don't know if Ms. Beckles consulted with her members before she made such a statement, but the changes have to be done, and guidance can be found from what obtained in the late 1980s into 1990 and the early 1990s up to 1992, where there were changes in Parliament to the boundaries when they converted from county councils to regional corporations. And the first recommendation was for 18 or 19 regions. And then there was a conversion, and they reduced it to 14. And the 14 is what we have today. From 1992 to present, the population has changed. In terms of the areas that are being expanded, there's so much difference in terms of the development and so on. So to me, to attack this type of comprehensive effort to bring equity is really a sort of, you really have to be what are you, a non-citizen? You're against happiness? What are you, you know? So I will continue to work with all our stakeholders, and I'm looking forward to the recommendation of the board. The PNM, of course, they are free to make recommendations. The PNM corporations will be part of the consultation, and they can have their input there. And of course, we look forward, because it's a continuous conversation. So those are the two matters that I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you very much, Minister Amin. And now we'd like to invite the Minister of Energy, Dr. Rudal Munilal, who has had a very, very, very successful trip.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My colleague, Parliamentary Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister and in the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Honorable Nicholas Morris, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen in the national community. It's a pleasure to be here yet again, I think in quick time, to brief the media on a few matters pertaining primarily to the energy sector. There are two bits of information I would share today, just to inform members of the press that only a few days ago, I returned along with a delegation from the Republic of India. As members of the press may be aware, Trinidad and Tobago was invited by His Excellency Hardeep Singh Puri, Minister of Natural Resources in the Republic of India. We were invited to participate in the India Energy Week 2026, which was held in Goa, India. It was during the period January 27th to 30th. The key events from that conference included participation in a ministerial panel discussion entitled Shifting the Exploration and Production Capital Equation, Attracting Investments and Driving Global Partnerships. In fact, that panel focused on global partnerships in the energy sector and the emerging forms and models being used to integrate work in exploration and production. I was extremely honored to be on a panel moderated by Dr. Amrita Sen of Energy Aspects, a leading entity in the United Kingdom. The panel included the Honorable Julie Moyo, Minister of Energy and Power Development of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and the Honorable Salome Makamba, Deputy Minister of Energy of the United Republic of Tanzania. The discussions focus on the increasing energy demands of the world over the next 25 years or so, and the role which Trinidad and Tobago seeks to play in meeting that demand. The importance of Trinidad and Tobago as a regional energy hub was discussed. And I might add that during the entire week, and particularly during panel discussions, the panelists and particularly representatives of the new emerging energy economies looked towards Trinidad and Tobago for leadership. They looked towards us for guidance, and they had enormous respect for our great history as an oil producer and as an energy economy, so that Trinidad and Tobago has a respect in the international energy community that is second to none. In fact, such a powerful presentation was it at the opening panel discussion that excerpts from that panel made the front page of the conference newspaper the next day. We were extremely pleased with that coverage. We also discussed Trinidad and Tobago's request to seek investments using the newly introduced Energy Accelerator Hub as a selling tool, as well as our country's political stability, local resources, and our attractive fiscal regime. We raised those issues in the context of attracting foreign direct investments. We also indicated that we were quite flexible and amenable to discussions with international players concerning our fiscal regime and concerning incentivizing the sector even further. As you will recall, in 2014 or thereabout, under the first administration of Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Visesa, the Trinidad and Tobago Ministry of Energy took steps to ensure that we had an attractive incentive framework that was revised, and because of that, in 2014, that led to several significant developments and findings and results during the period 2017 to 2020. It was all related to the work that we did between 2010 and 2015. Today, we assure the international energy community that we will continue to seek innovative ways of incentivizing the multinational corporations while ensuring that we have a very reasonable return to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Participants were extremely pleased to learn of our Energy Accelerator Hub, which is intended to improve the efficiency of processing applications and permits, resulting in faster approval times, while at all times adhering to health, safety, and environmental standards. A key note of this week's activity was that oil and gas will continue to play a significant role in meeting the energy demands of the world in the next 25 years. The delegation also participated in several bilateral meetings and, of course, a very lively exhibition tour. We were engaged with a wide cross-section of international energy companies. Apart from our legacy partners of BP, Shell, we also took the opportunity to meet, so to speak, new friends and significant players in the energy in the global energy business. We were pleased to meet a high-powered delegation from Reliance Industries Limited. Some of you may know Reliance operates the largest single-site complex refinery in the world in Gujarat, India, where they process on a daily basis, I believe, around 1.5 million barrels per day. We were happy to meet Reliance to discuss matters pertaining to the refinery in particular and other areas of interest. We were extremely pleased to meet another partner, a new friend in Indian Oil Corporation. That delegation to meet us was led by no less a person than the chairman of Indian Oil Corporation, Mr. A. Sani. And he led a very important team to meet us. Indian Oil, just to inform you in case some may not know, Indian Oil is India's largest state-owned integrated energy company with operations across the hydrocarbon value chain, including refining, marketing, pipelines, exploration and production, and petrochemicals. At that meeting, it was interesting just to place in perspective that Indian Oil operates 10 refineries in India. And we're extremely pleased that they have this capacity, this breadth, and we are intend to work with them to ensure that we participate in a process that would lead to the reopening and restarting of the refinery at Pointe-à-Pierre. We discussed with that delegation the provision of technical expertise and strategic directions. They have a wealth of experience in refinery capacity at various refineries, as I said, across Asia. The delegation indicated that there is a readily available local workforce to support the resumption of refining operations. We were told that Indian Oil was also very much interested in the entire Caribbean region and would be happy to return to Trinidad and Tobago, having done some work here, I believe, in the late 1990s. We expect within a short period of a few weeks, certainly post-carnival, we expect that we will be in a position to welcome a technical team from Indian Oil to look at the refinery and to give us some direction, some support. They were extremely pleased to return to Trinidad and Tobago since they had been here before, and they were extremely happy to know, which they indicated, the powerful local labor force that we have in refining and oil and gas. So that dialogue is ongoing. We were able to meet as well with, of course, ExxonMobil, with a very important company out of Europe, Total Energies. Total Energies, as some of you may know, operate at this moment in Suriname, but they do not have significant business in Trinidad and Tobago. We met with them in India, and they're very, very pleased to look at Trinidad and Tobago as an investment site. Total Energies, incidentally, as a European company, they're the largest single exporter of gas out of the United States, LNG. They're the largest single exporter out of the United States. And they were very happy to discuss with us expanding their Caribbean operations from Suriname to Trinidad and Tobago. We met several engineering firms out of Houston, based in Houston, that were exhibiting their services and so on in India. During this discussion, myself, along with the delegation, shared insights into Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector, highlighting the country's upstream potential and our government's plans to expand exploration activities, particularly in the deep and ultra-deep marine areas, which has been unexplored, as we know, for decades. So our strengths were there. We were extremely open and candid, and those partners expressed great interest in investment. Some were expressed openly a happiness that there has been some change in Trinidad and Tobago over the last year or so, and there has been a renewed focus. In fact, in discussions with the energy companies there, ExxonMobil stood out because all of the international oil and gas majors expressed the view that they were very pleased that ExxonMobil announced to the world that Trinidad and Tobago is now the gold standard in terms of doing business quickly and proceeding with pace to move quickly through negotiations to signing contracts and agreements. That is what we were reminded in India, that we are the gold standards. And I think that is why the multinational corporations across the globe, particularly those who may not be familiar with us, I think the ExxonMobil experience, when shared internationally, created quite a rave in that international sector. So all in all, it had been a successful week of meetings. We are looking forward to greater news in the future, and certainly the participation of several of the major refiners. We have also had discussions with other participants, primarily those operating in the United States and servicing the Gulf refineries. They have also expressed some interest because of their American base and their proximity to Trinidad and Tobago. So that was the week of the India Energy Conference. Just to put it in perspective again, the conference had 6,500 delegates. It had 550 speakers, 120 countries represented, 110 conference sessions, and 75,000 energy professionals. So all I can tell you is that really having traveled to that, we were really preoccupied only with the convention center and matters pertaining to the Energy Week. Regrettably, we were not in a position to see much of India or Goa except to focus on business. I'd also like to indicate, and some of you may be aware, that another major activity that will come up on our agenda is, of course, the activities taking place in Guyana very soon. February 17th, incidentally, February 17th, unless I'm mistaken, is Carnival Tuesday. Am I correct? Am I correct, Minister? I mean, yes, we believe so. So that the matter that I'm relating to is the Guyanese Energy Conference. It takes place on February 17th to 20th, and I can confirm now that Trinidad and Tobago has been invited to participate in this conference, and indeed the government of Trinidad and Tobago will participate in the Guyana Energy Conference during the period February 17th to 20th. We expect to have a very important high-level delegation attending, participating in discussions with His Excellency Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Vice President Bharat Jagdev, Minister of Natural Resources, the Honorable Vikram Bharat, and others. We expect to meet and discuss several issues of related interest to both the government and people of Guyana and the government and people of Trinidad and Tobago. So with that, I'll leave it there. And if there are some related questions, I'll be happy to take.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moilal, and we congratulate you on a very successful trip to re-energize our energy sector. So members of the media, we would now like to open up the floor to you. Darius?
Good afternoon, everyone. Darius Polo, Guardian Media. Minister Munilal, you spoke about the Indian Oil Corporation visiting Trinidad and Tobago at some point as we work to restart perhaps the Petrotrin refinery. Could you tell us whether they will be they will be among the persons interested in bidding for said refinery?
The issue of bidding or leasing or selling don't arise at this time. What we can say is that we are in talks with entities, particularly those with significant experience in refining, to assist us in the restart. If we can get the assistance in restart, it includes, of course, technical expertise, enormous, comprehensive, internationally reputable firms to do technical and health and safety analysis and so on, equipment, asset integrity reports and so on. If we can get that type of support, then the next phase, of course, is financial, structuring and what options are available to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. But at this stage, we will really need some support from, particularly, I keep repeating, reputable global players in refining, because in this business, you have to be very careful. We have said before, and I say it again, there will be no Nikon 2. There will be no Malcolm Jones style, WGTL, or that's what it's called. Yeah, there will be nothing like that, where you engage with firms that come together in some hasty business to get a contract, to get a gas arrangement, and they come in here, and then what happens? You go into $25 billion debt, then you blow up the plant, you kill somebody. I think when they plug on the Nikon plant, they nearly blow up Marabella. So we want to avoid that, and this is why we concentrate on international players who come to us with a big repetition in this business, and they can help. And we are happy that some of them have already been here. I just want to repeat again. It was in August 2025. Last year, we received a letter from the OPR indicating, after looking at the process used by the former PNM administration, they did highlight that that process was not in alignment with the OPR legislation, and there were issues relating to irregularities and certainly process issues, so that process was improper at best, you know. So what we are about now is really a new approach. Those players who have expressed an interest already, they're on the table, of course, they're still on the table, but we are in a situation now where we are discussing with international partners and those with great experience, how we can get together. In Guyana, we expect to raise matters pertaining to cooperation in the energy sector as well, where Trinidad and Tobago can play some role in developing that sector and assisting, and where, of course, the government of Guyana as well can work with us on projects that are mutually beneficial.
Any time frame for their arrival?
We had an agreement in principle that we will look for a very short-term approach. Of course, as everyone knows, these couple of weeks here will be preoccupied with Lime and other activities, so that we'll not look at this time. But certainly post-carnival into March and so on, we're expecting that Indian Oil and other partners, of course, not just that company, will be in the region, and they may have other business in the region as well. It will not be just Trinidad and Tobago, but in the region, once they're here, they will attend on us and look at the operations, look at the installations. Don't forget, it's now, I think, 7 years or so, the refinery has been closed, and while our initial report suggests that we can restart, there's still technical work to be done, particularly as it relates to health and safety.
You referred to the energy conference that should be taking place in Guyana, and it will be happening around the carnival season. You said a high-level delegation will represent Trinidad and Tobago. Will you be on it, and who else will represent our country at that event?
At this time, we have not settled on the delegation. That is a matter that we are looking at now. So I prefer not to comment on the composition of the delegation at this time, because we are still looking at some of the issues. As you know, you need to synchronize the composition of a delegation with the issues, with what you intend to do. So in the coming days, we'll be very clear on that.
I want to shift to some news that I read earlier today. Shell's CEO announced that Dragon Gas could be activated within months and reach production within about 3 years. What is the current status in terms of Trinidad and Tobago's relationship with the U.S. to secure an OFAC license or an extension in order to have that come to fruition? And what update can you give us from the government's perspective based on that revelation?
So
What about the open spaces?
to add what Dory said, is that we had U.S. Embassy official Scott Hanson describe Trinidad as the preferred partner, especially with navigating businesses into Venezuela and OFAC licenses. Can you say what is going on with that OFAC license and what have we been doing with it?
The OFAC license is in place. It is valid today as we speak. Work has been, continuing by all stakeholders. I noticed, I just want to make one point before I get to the bigger, broader issue you're raising. I noticed the now unemployed former Minister of Energy is making a lot of noises about whether Trinidad and Tobago is negotiating with Venezuela, whether I intend to go, whether the Prime Minister will go, whether we recognize A or B or C and so on. Those are matters are moot. They are not relevant to us at this time. The Dragon project has been ongoing since under Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Mrs. Prasad Bisesa spent enormous time, energy, and effort working for Trinidad and Tobago to retrieve the Dragon gas project. From day one, I can tell you, from the day Mrs. Prasad was sworn in and her cabinet was sworn in, she was all about that. And she worked very hard, and Trinidad and Tobago retrieved that project because of her. And now that the license is in place, work has been taking place. Even during the tense days in December and so on, there was no indication that anything had changed, and work continued. The timeline given by the Shell executive, I think, is a realistic timeline, in that we expect that we will progress that project in good time. I think it may have been delayed by about 4 months or 6 months, given the fact that Stuart Young lost the license, that they revoked the license under Mr. Young's management. That may have led to about a 6-month delay or so, but it is progressing. We have been in touch with the stakeholders, and we continue to engage. The other matters related to that is that there are other 2 areas, the Lauren Manatee and the Manikin Coquina, and the Coquina and Lauren. And there are applications before the United States authorities. We are not discouraged at all. In fact, we are optimistic that the Treasury Department will see favor with those applications for Trinidad and Tobago as well. We are optimistic about that, so that those cross-border fields and Dragon, which is an across-the-border field, we believe that those 3 will bear fruit in the short to medium term, which will give Trinidad and Tobago, of course, a very good advancement on production, given the serious problem we have had of gas shortage.
Dr. Munilal, just to go a little bit further based on what you said moments ago, you referred to Stuart Young, the former energy minister, questioning whether the government, whether yourself, whether the Prime Minister recognizes Delcy Rodriguez as president of Venezuela interim. How can Trinidad and Tobago and the population be assured that this project will come to fruition, that is Dragon gas, if we don't have clarity as to whether we have any conversation with the Venezuelan government as a stakeholder, considering they own the gas? Are we going ahead with the project without them? And how is that possible?
Well, the Dragon gas, as you know, is not a new project. It didn't start yesterday. It started several years ago. And there's an agreement on that project with the government of Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago. There has been no indication by any party that they wish to repudiate or terminate that agreement. So the agreement is in place. The shareholder, the stakeholder in this instance, of course, is Shell, and they continue to do a lot of the work involved in it. We are in negotiations all the time, in discussions with Shell. At a certain level as well, we have to meet and interface with officials of Venezuela, which has been done over the years. What Mr. Young is ignoring, the fact that since August 2017, Venezuela has been under sanctions, and therefore as a partner in the region, we are prohibited in some way from meeting and treating, particularly on matters of petroleum. It is only January 29th, a few days ago, that they lifted the oil-related sanctions. I think people are forgetting that too. It is only a few days ago those oil-related sanctions were lifted, and you all have been reading in the international press the impact of that as far as it relates to all these global players. So we continue to do the work. The long and short is that nothing has changed. The only thing to really change is because of the political incompetence and recklessness of Mr. Young, Dr. Rowley, Ms. Beckles, and others. Because of that, I think that may have cost a slight delay in proceedings, but we are back on track, and we have absolutely no indication that any effectively those projects have been lost or delayed in any great way.
We've discussed it numerous times when then President, now ousted, Nicolas Maduro, would have said that he was cancelling all agreements with Trinidad and Tobago pertaining to gas. And you yourself and others would have stated that no formal cancellation was received. Is it that because we haven't received that formal notice that these projects or this agreement was cancelled, that we maintain that the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago is still, and Venezuela is still an open one? And also, you said at some point we will be discussing or will likely have to have discussions with Venezuelan officials. How soon could something like that take place? And do you anticipate any challenge where that is concerned?
Well, discussions with officials have been taking place over the years. In fact, there's a public record I raised in Parliament that Mr. Young spent, I think, about $1.6 million over 2 years in traveling to Venezuela. Several officers of the Ministry of Energy, known to me now, have been there and conducting business and so on. There's no issue with that. And you're right, Mr. Maduro did announce with some fanfare that agreements were cancelled, and then I think he was cancelled. So we're in the same place we were before, where we continue to do the work. We have no indication from any source or any party that anything has changed or cancelled, to use that term, and we continue to move full speed ahead.
Considering Atlantic LNG has been operating under capacity,
Yes.
is there any milestone that it must achieve, let's say within the next 12 months, to ensure that we are ready to receive what Shell's CEO is proposing?
The issue there is that, as you know, Train 1 was shut down and decommissioned, to use that term, or in the process of. That was done under the PNM administration, and people are forgetting that they had taken, I think, over $200 million from NGC to invest in Train 1 when BP and the other partners told them no, they were not proceeding because of clearly the lack of supply, gas supply. And $200 million went down the drain. Apart from that, there have been, of course, a problem with curtailment and short supply and so on. And that's why we are making all of this effort in the upstream sector to ensure that we attract more and more exploration and production to get us to where we have to be in terms of the supply of gas for not just the Point Lisa, so downstream entities, but Atlantic LNG as well.
I want to shift to the increase in natural gas, which has had some knock-on effect. We saw the price increase announced by TCL, of course, that caused national conversation. What's your reaction to that, as we're seeing private entities are not absorbing the cost?
Well, as I think a cabinet colleague of mine indicated that private entities will do what they feel is in their best interest. The state and the government, through the NGC, will do what we believe to be in our best interest. And the issue here, again, is that under Mr. Young's stewardship, they had left that issue of negotiating prices and so on. They had left that in abeyance on month-to-month. There were companies operating on month-to-month basis as if it's a parlor. And that was left like that. And then the NGC had to intervene, do the economic scenario and the modeling, the planning and so on. And they arrived through a process of negotiation. People are forgetting that. Through a process of negotiation, they arrived at certain increases to certain entities. Folks are still not in the know that several of those companies and several of the customers of the NGC have already signed and closed the book, and they have agreed, and there's agreement, and they move forward. Yes, there are some issues with a few, and we can meet and treat with that. Some are outstanding. My last a couple of weeks ago, I had a full appraisal, and Chairman Ramdeen, I think, yes, indicated that there are some outstanding matters which he indicated that we expect within a couple of weeks. Certainly, I was thinking before Carnival to sort out. But there has been agreement by the majority of customers of the NGC. A couple are still outstanding. We're hoping that we can smoothen out those negotiations and come to agreement.
You said, like the companies, the state and NGC will do what's in its best interest. Will government reconsider the increase, or is it that is in the country's best interest?
Well, there are companies that we have already signed and sealed. You can't reconsider that way. Those are contractual issues now. We can't reopen the negotiations if they have already concluded and signed. But, if you are before the NGC, now, I don't want to prejudice at this stage. I cannot prejudice any discussions and negotiations between the NGC and the downstreamers. They are in a process, and the fact that they have not concluded yet means that they are still in active negotiations, and we'll see how that pan out in the coming days.
Mr. Young would have said, and I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague shortly. Mr. Young would have said at a news conference, I think a week or so ago, he raised issue with the way the contract was presented. He said some of them received it, or most of them at least, on Christmas Eve with just 3 days to consider it, and he criticized the process. How would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I don't know where was Mr. Young there Christmas Eve. What was he doing? Baking cake? What was he doing on Christmas Eve that he's aware of all of that? I can't accept, his observation or conclusion. What I can say is that they have finished negotiation, signed some agreements with several entities, and they have a few outstanding that they're working on. Mr. Young, I think, has really nothing to do.
Hi, Minister Amin, one for you. Take the heat off of Minister Munilal there for a second. When we are speaking about the upgrading of public spaces program, are there any plans to extend the current amplification of it? So in other words, beyond Carnival, would there be maybe some of these employees would be held on and a constant upkeep versus a burst of upkeep?
Well, as a matter of fact, our upkeep of public spaces program, we launched a pilot which started on the 15th of December. That is, lasts for 3 months, and it goes up till the 15th of March. That has allowed us to examine where we can improve on the system, because when the government disbanded the URP, we created the Unemployment Fund in the Ministry of Finance. This allows us to apply funding from that fund to hiring persons to work in the municipal corporations to enhance their workforce. The pilot project has allowed us to work out some kinks, some administrative kinks, make recommendations for improvement, and in fact we have had meetings with all 14 municipalities for them to make recommendations which will go back to Cabinet. The special project for Carnival is a 1 month that Cabinet has already approved, and I'll tell you the value of it is $5.36 million. And that amount is to pay the workers that we have taken, where we have 86 teams of persons for 4 weeks. So it's a fixed number of workers for a fixed number of days. And at the end of our pilot project, our initial pilot project in March, we will gather the data, the recommendations from the various municipalities, as well as our stakeholders, because our unions, for instance, have been part of our conversation, and therefore we will have those recommendations for Cabinet to deliberate to see whether this is a program that we can continue or how we can continue. Because there are people who need employment. There is need for more workers on the ground, but there is also an issue of productivity with the current workers in the municipal corporations that every single municipal corporation faces. So we'll continue to talk to the unions about that, the productivity of their workers, while we work with these temporary. But I want to tell you too that this is a temporary program where we are learning from it and making improvements. So you will be updated in terms of Cabinet's further decisions at the end of the pilot project in March.
Minister, if my notes are correct, Minister, I mean that is over 1,000 staff, 86 teams, 12 people each for about 4 weeks. Could you tell us how much that will cost the state?
The exact cost, $5,363,520. That's the overall cost.
To piggyback off of Alicia's question about something more long term, what happens next after the carnival season for these employees? What happens to the people that are on short-term contracts via these corporations?
Yeah. Short-term employment for Carnival in the municipal corporations is nothing new. All of them would usually hire short-term employees as well as additional services such as trucks to pick up garbage and so on. So they usually have a Carnival program. So the hiring of short-term employees for Carnival is nothing new. This time, though, the ministry is hiring the workers and sending them to the corporation. So it's a savings for the corporation, so they don't have to go through that expense, but it also saves them on overtime for their existing workers. So that is nothing new. In fact, for Carnival, you have a lot of economic activity for even small businesses surrounding Carnival and all the associated services. So this is nothing new.
Dr. Munilal, when you were out of the country, the energy chambers, the conference was taking place, and we know that you were supposed to be a featured speaker, and then the government decided not to go.
No, but just for the record, I was never supposed to be a
You were
featured
invited.
speaker.
Apologies. But
Yeah.
there was a statement that the energy chamber said it was willing to revise its internal operations as well as safe to work. How do you feel about that? And would that signal an opportunity for the government to kind of re-engage with the energy chamber, which it sort of criticized for, being against the small man and small energy businesses in Trinidad and Tobago?
As you are aware, I was not in the jurisdiction at the time, but did follow somewhat news items and so on, and took note of that. And I mean, all I can say at this stage is that those persons, they are associated, are entitled to do whatever they want to do. That is not there's no legal requirement or policy requirement vis-a-vis the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So they are entitled to do anything that they want to do, whether to revise, to review, to relook, anything. Is absolutely no issue with us. We have said before, and we just reinforce the point that we would like a body that is fair, that is well represented for the cross-section and wide cross-section of the energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago, that is easily accessible, that will not put barriers or gateways to enter the sector for anyone, whether it is an employee or a small business. We want a situation like that, and we want a body, ideally, which represents all, not just a few, not just a favored few, not just the quote-unquote legacy traditional players. We would like a wide cross-section of entities and persons and so on represented in anybody. I think that is very fair. So I took note of it, but it's not something that is, in my preoccupation at this time.
Considering what you just said and the Prime Minister's criticism of Stowe in the first place, would it be fair to say that you or the government welcomes plans to revisit or do away with Stowe?
No, we don't welcome nobody. In that sense, they are free to do anything they want to do. We have made a pronouncement where we have indicated that in consultation with the oil majors and on direction to the state enterprise sector, they have terminated the Stowe requirement. that is that. Anybody's free to do anything they want outside of that. There are standards, international standards. We have in this country, I think people are forgetting, we have comprehensive OSHA rules and regulations and laws. Some may be in need of amendment like anything else, but we have a body of law in place to deal with environment, occupational health and safety. And to a certain extent, we have policy in place to deal with corporate social responsibility and so on. And we have gone, we have moved on. So we can store the store. There is no need
before
for
you
that.
ask this question, I just want to say this. We have one more question from
Yes.
each journalist because it's turning into a personal interview with the Minister of Energy, and I'm sure we can have that, but let's have one more from each journalist, or one more from the Udary.
I have one more, but just for the record, it is not my fault that other journalists are not present.
Sure,
And I
sure.
am capitalizing on the opportunity on behalf of my media house. But I just want to pose one final question to Dr. Munilal. Will the Prime Minister be, or will you be, also attending the Caribbean Energy Week in Suriname at the end of March?
Again, for the record, we have been invited. I don't think we have arrived at a conclusion in terms of attendance and composition of a delegation. But I believe that we are properly invited, and we have been in touch with Minister Patrick Broomings. In fact, he's the Minister of Energy there. And he has been in touch with us, and I think he's very eager to receive a delegation from Trinidad and Tobago, and we will certainly consider that in the coming days.
I think you have one more from ECP, or does that?
Yes, just a very quick one.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Minister Munilal again. I'm sorry. Has there been any sort of backlash that you have received in terms of how you would say relations are with the energy chambers?
Well, our relationship has not changed. I had no relationship. We're not related.
All right, thank you very much, members of the media. Thank you very much, ministers. And again, thank you for joining us. And we look forward to you actually tuning in tomorrow when the government goes to Parliament to continue its legislative agenda. So thank you very much and have a great evening.
The winning numbers in the National Lottery online draws for Thursday, 5th February 2026 at 10:30 a.m. Play away the number 18 Waterboat called with the Soca Ball. Play away jackpot the numbers 10, 11, 23, 17 and 16 in any order. Pick 2, the numbers 4 and 28 in that order. Pick 4, the numbers 5, 4, 6 and 6 in that order. At 1 p.m., play away the number 33 Spider Mega Ultra Ball called with a Juve Ball. Play away jackpot the numbers 24, 26, 3, 23 and 6 in any order. Pick 2, the numbers 22 and 18 in that order. Pick 4, the numbers 1, 1, 3 and 9 in that order. And at 4 p.m., play away the number 13 Crapo Mega Ball called with a white ball. Play away jackpot the numbers 35, 2, 9, 22 and 32 in any order. Pick 2, the numbers 24 and 30 in that order, Mega Ball called. Pick 4, the numbers 1, 4, 0 and 8 in that order.
Well, yo, this is your boy Ricky J. You ever late for the fete, so you mash down on the X? Speeding come like normal until you realize how fast things can go wrong. So this carnival, we on a slower scene. Choose to slow down and obey the speed limit. Better choices, safer carnival. I, Ricky J, say so. Don't spoil my name, don't spoil my name. Son, I'm telling you plain. Don't spoil my name, don't spoil my name. I'm telling you again and again. I'm telling you again and again. This carnival, slow down. Don't spoil my name. Son, I'm telling you plain. Don't spoil my name, don't spoil my name.
The Caribbean is celebrated as a vibrant tapestry of culture and community, a harmony of distinct voices, rhythms, and spirit. Among our many festivals, there's one that rises above all others and unites us beneath a single powerful banner. We invite the entire Caribbean